name is Shruti. Thank you very much for being a part of this session. Uh, we will talk about Art Clay Silver, which I'm sure is the one thing that has brought us all together. I'd like to begin by thanking Shuttles and Needles for this fabulous opportunity to interact with everybody and to share one part of my passionate journey with creative arts. I'd like to begin by giving you an idea about how it all started, and then we'll go on to talk about silver clay. I'll be talking to you about the various forms in which it is available and all that. So let's say till about 2000, I was a hardcore academic. I'm a master's in English, I'm a first class first, and did finished a lot of academic qualifications till then, because my mother had said once I'm done with my B.Ed, then I could do what I wanted to. And I held her to it, and it started with glass painting. So glass painting led to me reaching out to a friend because I wanted to learn how to play the piano. I played the keyboard till then, and I wanted to learn how to play with both my hands, and my friend was learning guitar. And the day I walked into a house, the music teacher, who then became my music teacher, was completely exasperated and exhausted because my friend was horribly out of tune. But he came over, and when I started learning the piano, I told him randomly, I said, sir, I would love to learn pottery. So he put me on to a colleague's son who was doing pottery, and 3 years down the line, I was also doing pottery. And one fine day, I told him I want to do enameling. So he put me on to a friend of his who was into enameling, and I signed up for an enameling workshop, and I realized that enameling required a kiln. And it also required enamels, and in those days, I'm talking early 2000s, you had to buy your own lumps of glass and grind them and wash them and grind them and wash them and do your enameling and then do the next thing. So I went ahead, I learned how to enamel on copper. I wanted to enamel some silver jewelry, which is where my tryst started with the local karigars and the lack of supplies thereof. And I realized that most people were selling silver that was 92.5% pure, the sterling silver stuff. Max go to 96, or maximum, if you really knew the silversmith, he would oblige you with 97 to 98% pure silver, which was not really ideal for enameling in any case. And there was nobody to bezel the pieces for me. Once you finish a piece of enameling, especially, you need a little border to keep it all safe. So the struggle was, okay, how do I continue with this? And while all of this was happening, I happened to walk into the International Book Show in Delhi. And in one remote corner, there was the Indian Book House shelf, which had one copy of Premier Art Clay Jewellery. That magazine, unfortunately, does not happen right now. Art Jewellery, not Art Clay, sorry, Art Jewellery. And with all the money in my pocket, I bought that magazine. I think it was 500 or 700 rupees for just that magazine. So one half of my mind said, that's crazy, you don't pay so much for a magazine. The other half said, I need to have it. I brought the magazine home, I flipped through the pages, I came across Art Clay Silver, a product that is made by 2 companies in Japan. We'll come to that later, but precious metal clay, as they called it. So the article was on precious metal clay. The more I read about it, the more I wanted to play with it, because here was a medium that would get me rid of everything that was holding me back. So I figured out a source in Singapore, got some material, played with it, made my first piece. Took me months to do what now takes me 5 minutes, but it was so worth it. And again, the saving grace was that I had a kiln for enameling. So joining the dots started here. So because I had the kiln, I was kind of ready to do what I wanted to do. And then, of course, in 2005, I went to the US for the first time. I wrote to both the companies in Japan, which are Aida and Mitsubishi, who make precious metal clay, which is what we're going to talk about today. And when I reached out to them, the people from Aida were more responsive. They reached out to me, and I was given a trainer in the US. So when I went to the US, I had gone to attend a beach show, I had gone to meet my cousin, but I also went to do my certification in silver clay, called Art Clay Silver, which is now the medium that I work with. The moment I stepped out of the train where my teacher had come to pick me up, the first thing she said to me was that one day you're going to represent Art Clay Silver in India, and I laughed. I said, I'm a teacher, I do my own thing, I do not have the business mindset that is required for this kind of thing. But she was very sure, and anyway, the process was that she actually compressed a year's worth of training for me in 13 days. So I did my level 1 and level 2 training with her, came back to India, needed the supplies, but because of the customs and everything, the supplies could not come to me because of certain rules and regulations. And that's when Japan technically stepped in, and I went to Japan in 2007 to do my formal international training in silver clay teaching. And that's when they willingly allowed me to teach in India and to represent them. So I represent Art Clay Silver in India, and I am the person that you contact when it comes to Art Clay Silver. And that's where my journey began. So from there, I'll compress it a little more. Every few years, they have workshops where they call all artisans, artists and artisans who represent them, they call them to Japan. We are trained there regularly. We learn how to, they push the medium, we also push the medium as per whatever they tell us. Then we come back to our own countries, we work with the material, celebrate the joys of working with a phenomenal medium, and the journey continues. So this is my journey in very, very short. Now let me talk about Art Clay Silver. Art Clay Silver is basically pure silver. It's a 99.9% pure silver. So the USP is that the company, Aida is the company that makes Art Clay Silver. They blend silver particles that they have reclaimed. So if you close your eyes for a minute and visualize tooth extractions in the older times, film negatives, X-ray negatives, in the current times again, the computer components that have silver in them. So everything and anything is what they put together. They process it, recycle it, repurpose it, extract the silver from there. So it's basically a green product. They extract silver, they make it into, they blend it with a certain binder. Of course, that is the most confidential part of it, but it's binder, and their binder is, it's mostly water. So it's an organic product. So when you get a piece of Art Clay Silver, when you fire it, you can fire it ideally in the kiln, but because the purpose is to reach out to all people and to enable as many people as can, they want them to work with it. So if it's below 10 grams, you can actually fire it on the gas stove. You can fire it with a torch. We'll be doing it with a little torch at the end of the session. This is for a demo. But if your piece weighs less than 10 grams, you can actually fire it on the gas stove. And I'll tell you how that goes. So that's about the material. It's malleable. It's very soft. It's like clay or porcelain or whatever you would call it. It's buttery. It comes in 3 forms. One of them is the package. It's clay form. This is what the clay form is. You get it in the clay form. If you open a packet, depending on the weight, you get clay like this. It's packed, it's sealed, and you can use the entire body at the first go, or you can keep it aside and use it again, provided you pack it in a certain way, and you can keep that away. Then you have the paste form, which is where it comes in a little bottle like this. Depending, again, you get it in 10 grams and 20 gram packages. But this is a bottle, and this right now is the most magical thing that's available in the Art Clay thing, because you can actually even weld with it, in terms of broken silver pieces. If you do it the right way, you can put 2 pieces together and they will hold on together. It's a fabulous thing. You can use it to make designs. You can use it to join pieces together. And that's, again, another thing that I will talk to you about. And the third form of silver clay is in a syringe. So if you can see, this is the packing. This is just to give you an idea, so when you see it in the market. But it comes in the syringe form. So the consistency of clay in these 3 forms is different. So once you are comfortable with the medium, you might want to play with the little thing here. Normally if you look at the videos, you can make slip with clay as well. But then if you are really doing a super serious job, you would want to use the paste. And it is interchangeable. You could do it. So once you've learned the rules, you can break them. But the point is that every medium here serves a purpose of its own, and it adds to the value of the piece in terms of the strength, in terms of the design value, in terms of whatever else you're doing with it. So for example, you would want to use the syringe or the paste when you're adding a sterling silver jump hook, for example, a pendant hook or something to your silver clay piece. So that is where the 3 mediums come in. And if I may, when I do the beginner's workshop, that's what we talk about. In the beginner's workshop, I introduce the students to the medium. And then we talk about the technicalities, the do's and the don'ts, the pros and the cons. And the idea is to empower the student to go home and create whatever he or she wants. So it's not a specific set of things. It is, we do a paste project, we do a syringe-based project, we do a clay-based project. The idea is so that the student is conversant with what are the strengths of a particular medium, and then you go home and you play with the medium, and then we take it further. So that is the process. And if we talk of the versatility of the material, I think it is one of the most versatile mediums. Coming to the liberation part of it, once you sit and work with a piece of silver clay, you do not need a karigar. You do not need a third person to fire it, fuse it, bend it, whatever. You're doing everything on your own. And that becomes the niche. It's a handcrafted piece from scratch. And literally anybody can do it. You're all set to do it once you make your mind up for it. Reconstituting it is very easy. The wastage is zero, literally zero. Or if you may, I mean, if you would take it literally, let's say maybe 99.9% of the times you can reclaim it. You've made a piece, for example, if it's in its raw form. Now this, I know it's tiny, but this is clay before it has been fired. So it could look like plaster of Paris, it could look like porcelain, whatever, but this is silver. And once we fire it, the binder will burn off, we'll be left with hard metal silver. So this is what you work with when you're working with this clay. What happens is that, say you were to break it, it were to fall and it breaks. Use a bit of paste, use a bit of water. Water is used almost magically. You'd be pleasantly surprised to see what the potential of water is when it comes to a piece like this, or anything when you're working with silver clay. So if it breaks, add a little paste on both sides, clean it up with your finger, stick it together, let it sit for a day, you're ready to fire. Besides you, nobody will ever know that it had cracked somewhere. If not, if it's broken into more pieces and you can put together, take it, crush it, you have the mortar and pestle, get a ceramic mortar and pestle, get a marble mortar and pestle, crush it, crush it, crush it, vent out all your anger on the entire world in that little piece of mortar and pestle. You have the finest powder, add a bit of water to it, you have material ready to work with. So you could use it as a paste, you could use it for whatever, it'll come handy with whatever you want to do. Once it's fired, if you were to say, if you keep collecting those things, if you have it with you, as if any one of you is a jeweler, or as a jeweler, you might want to reclaim it, recycle it, but once it's fired, it's another game. But if you were to give it to somebody, it would still be 99.9% pure silver. So it's not valueless at any point of time. You don't have to stress yourself out about wastage, but you can, even when you're finishing a piece, for example, if you're filing it with an iron file or a stainless steel file, for example, you can collect that material. It's still fine silver, you can still reconstitute it. So literally nothing goes to waste. When you open a package, the clay form at least has a little bit of plastic on it. So if you are as stingy as one gets because you love the medium so much, every little speck of clay on that little strip is also worth 1,000 pennies in terms of the value of the clay. So you keep it together and you use it and you go on with it. So talking about the enameling part of it, 99.9% pure means you get as many colors as you can, but only with this material. I mean, if you were to try, unless some of you have already tried, if you were to enamel on the silver that you usually get, you will get pink. You won't get pinks. You get a muddy pink. They get tarnished. This material is pure magic. It listens to you. It makes the enamel sing. It makes life really easy. And it comes with a shrinkage. So the shrinkage is about 8%. So what happens with the shrinkage is, the most important thing that happens is the design contracts, so you get more detail. This material has a phenomenal ability to capture detail, and what a lot of people have done the easiest thing you can do is put your fingerprint, fire it, and you have a pendant or whatever you want, So that's the thing that you make for eternity, if at all you want. And it captures the fingerprints beautifully. Anything, any detail, it captures beautifully. Once you start working with the medium, you've rolled it out, you're working on it, you work with it in different phases. For example, the 4 stages of working with this clay is right out of the packet. That's the first step. When it's moist and it's kind of wet, you work with it, you let it dry. Then comes the leather hard stage. It's leather hard because it still has moisture, but you cannot break it, you cannot bend it. But it can still, you can mold it. You can put it over a ball, a bowl, a glass, or whatever you want if you want it to take another shape. So you can carve on it in the leather hard stage. Then you have the bone dry stage. Now this terminology comes from pottery and ceramics, but it serves the same thing here. It has to be bone dry before you put it in the kiln, otherwise it pops in the kiln. no air bubbles, nothing. So that's another stage. You fire it, and then you can, the finishing part of it, you finish it at every step as you go, and you learn it as you start working with the medium. You know, there are some steps you can take while it is wet. There are some precautions you can take, or some things you want to do to it while it's in the leather hard stage. Some things you will do only when it's bone dry. The idea here is that you don't have, it takes away the fight of working with hard metal at every stage. You're not working with silver till it is really fired. So if you want to drill a hole, if you can pre-plan, you will drill a hole before you fire the piece. And the thickness also, you get an idea, you know, it's like any other medium that you work with. It starts speaking to you. The more zen you are about it, the more responsive the medium is, and then you tell your own stories with it. And I have also realized that you can actually visualize anything and put it together as you go. Say, for example, I'm sure, I mean, none of you here has taken a workshop or a certification course, but the point is, you know, there's so much material that's available online on the net. You look at a few pieces, you have the liberty of playing with it, you have the liberty of toying with it, and you will definitely come up with something that will be worth the while, because in any case, unconditionally, it is original. It's handmade, it's original, and as you go, you learn, okay, I could have done this differently, or, you know, whatever. We learn as we go. So that to me is the biggest USP of the material. It gives you that space. It lets you work at your pace. You don't have to finish it in 3 days. You've made half the piece, something else has come up, or you need to take care of something else. Come back to it after months. Just make sure you've put it in a safe, secure little place. It'll wait for you. It'll wait just as nicely and patiently as it did the first day. Only, you know, if you want to make it a little more wet and moist, there are more ways of doing it. So you dampen it again, and then you start working with it. But it's a friend for life. That's how I look at it. Coming to the firing, less than 10 grams, you work with it with a torch, you work with it on the gas stove, it works just as brilliantly. And from experience, a lot of people are really petrified of it the first time they fire it. It might happen today as well, because I usually do it in a kiln. I've done it here, but, you know, but the moral of the story is that it works. And then you need a couple of tools to brush off the fire scale, and you're ready to wear it. And that's about it. So you can work with it. It's your choice. You can make it look like literally a child's play, child's work. You can make it look really sophisticated. Give it time, work with it, understand the medium, play with it, explore what the other people are doing, bring your ideas to it, and you will create masterpieces that will actually surprise you, because these are things that you wouldn't have thought about in another situation. So in my journey, I have done, of course, a lot of workshops have happened in Japan, so we've done those pieces also. But one of my biggest experiments was, those of you who walked around, there's this necklace in the first slot, which is glass and silver. So that for me was very interesting, because I fused silver on glass, and they have a very different means of cooling down. They have a different, they respond differently to different kinds of heats. So again, the point I'm trying to make here is that you can do what you want, you know, one step at a time, push the medium, see what you want to do, and the sky is the limit. So that is where we are. And when it comes to the tools, if you look at the basic infrastructure that's required, honestly, not much. A piece of clay, a packet of clay, a couple of playing cards maybe, a little thing to roll the clay with, a little maybe olive oil or something. You carve it, you can texture it with anything that you have, but the only thing is that we work with it only with stainless steel. If you venture into it and you want to work on it all by yourself, please do not use aluminium. Aluminium tools and products are not suitable, because it will tarnish the clay. So it's always stainless steel. Glass, of course, and acrylic glass, if you please. And water, again, you need water. You moisten your finger and you smoothen out the piece. You don't need a lot of paraphernalia, maybe a round file and a square file to drill holes into the piece, or a little drill bit, the tiny ones that you get, the fine ones for piece of jewelry, and a couple of sanding papers to smoothen it out, and oodles of patience and oodles of imagination. That's all it takes. You don't need huge stuff, but once you are into it, once you decide that you want to take it seriously, it's always a good idea to invest in a kiln. There are these tiny kilns called jewel kilns. Yes, we have a lot of challenges in India, but somehow there are always ways to figure things out. But till then, I think this is one of the best ways to do it. So far, are there any questions that I would need to address?
It's a clay and the silver is, there's a binder to it and when you fire it, is it, at the final piece, does it have any porosity or anything, or is it exactly like the other silver?
No, the porosity will depend on how well you have worked on the medium. The more you compress it and work, it will never have holes unless you choose it to have holes, or even visibly. It's like the skin, so it will have porosity, but not that kind. And then you burnish it. So when you burnish it, the particles compress. And thank you for bringing that up, because when you burnish it, you don't need gadgets. You literally need a spoon, or you use this to burnish the piece with. No, it will only shrink a little, the 8% shrinkage, that's about it. Otherwise, no. When you burnish it, the more you burnish a finished silver piece, again, then it could be any silver that we are talking about, but with silver clay, it compresses the molecules, which is what brings a shine to the piece. So literally now, I mean, you will probably miss out on it for this minute, but if you look at that piece there, this is, I am doing it more because I would love to see your reaction to the whole story. If you look at that piece there, this is literally handcrafted from scratch. The shine that you see is hand burnished. It's been hand burnished. And this is what I wanted to talk about, the color. Technically, in other parts of the world, what people use is called liver of sulfur. It's this little thing with sulfur, and it has a very interesting pungent smell. You get to love it once you start using it. And you put it in a bowl of hot water, a little piece in a bowl of hot water, and then the metal starts changing colors in layers, so it goes from yellow to pink to blue to gold to purple to whatever, depending on how many times you dunk into it. And because we are in India, and because liver of sulfur was not available when I was working on this piece, this has been patinaed with a boiled egg. That's what I wanted. Yes. No, the egg. The egg. So this was, once I fired it, I took the fire scale off it, I burnished it and I burnished it and I burnished it. And then I took a boiled egg and I mashed the boiled egg, I put it in a little baggie and I put the pendant in it, and then I sat there and I watched it change colors. So the moment I got the colors I wanted, it's not just one color, it's a lot of colors. The moment I got the colors I wanted, I pulled it out. Cleaned it, washed it, and crossed my fingers while I washed it, but yeah, you can wash it. And then you wash it with a little water with a little bit of salt in it or something like that. I mean, I could tell you that later. But this is what this material can do. This is what it responds to. And it's as simple as that. So again, what I personally loved about the material when I started working with it was that it's just about you. You can work with it on your own. It lets you do everything on your own. You don't need another person to do anything at all. So basically, you own your piece at every level, because with karigars and all, normally it's almost a compromise. Madam, ye nahi ho sakta. Madam, isko aise kar lo. And also, it is non-commercial. That's another thing. In the sense, of course, it's commercial. You can sell it, but here is a medium that allows you to work on it as an artist. It's also one-off. Personally, I have never had the heart to sell any of my pieces. I've sold them by the grace of God, but you own every piece so much because it's just so precious. So that's also a good high to experience, when you love so much, you want to sell it, but you can't. It's an experience. So that's another part of the story.
So when you enamel it with pre-available liquids, do you have to fire them twice, or is it just one firing?
It depends on what it is, because usually the ones that you're talking about, I don't think they're fired. So there are cold enamels and there are hot enamels.
True.
So the enamel that I have done, I've done both. So we can use resin as well. So if you're using cold enamels, there's nothing to fire. You just add it to the piece in the grooves. And yes, you follow the instructions on the product.
And that's again by the same company? Is it a...
No, that's offered by a lot of other companies.
But
you
it's
have
compatible with these products?
Yes. This is compatible with anything under the sun.
And the piece which you said about glass and the metal clay.
Yes.
Glass, so The melting points for glass is not the same as...
No,
Yeah.
no. So I fused the glass first.
Okay.
So at 900 degrees, silver clay can go up to 900.
Okay.
So at 900, glass is soft.
Soft.
It's just soft enough to let the silver set into it.
Okay.
So you do the two things separately, but then you fuse them. That's how you do it. But you also keep your fingers crossed and you go with that willingness that it might just
Yeah.
break. The kiln gods were kind to me that day, so it has survived.
The cooling process of annealing and with the silver contracting, I'm just wondering if that must have been a good challenge. I would love to see that piece.
Yeah,
later on.
I'll just show it to you. Could somebody pass that piece to me, please? We could talk about it. So if you look at the silver clay, if you put it in the kiln, if we torch it, it takes about 2 to 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how big the piece is. In the kiln, you literally fire it for 5 minutes at 800 degrees. And it's done. So you can pull it out. As soon as you fire it for 5 minutes, you can take it out and, it's ready to be dunked in cold water and you use it. But because there's glass and glass has the potential for thermal shock, then you promise yourself to go to sleep that day with the piece in the kiln. And you do not go close to the kiln.
True.
Because you want to do a peekaboo and the piece gets upset and it breaks. So this is the pendant that I was talking about. We'll start from here to make life simpler. So this is glass that is used for bead making. So this is, I forget the name of the glass, but this is what you have, and it works with, you fuse it basically onto the beads. And what I did was I had shards of glass together. So I fired a lot of these shards together to come up with the piece, and of course it was irregular. So then I decided to embellish it with silver clay. So what you see on this is I made the piece first, the glass piece first, and then because it was irregular and I needed to do something with it, I balanced it out with silver. So half of it is glass, half of it is silver, and then I did some scroll work in it. Now that scroll work is also the syringe.
Okay.
That's syringe, and it comes with different nozzles, different thicknesses of nozzles. So I used the finest one there to make these designs, and each of these I think is about 2-3 rounds of scrolling. And then I let it dry completely because it has to be really dry before you put it in the kiln. And then you close your eyes and you cross your fingers, and then you put it in and you turn on the whole thing, and then you pray to the kiln gods that it stays alive and happy. And that's exactly what I did. And then when it came out, it was still alive. And this was one of my submissions to one of the jewelry competitions in Japan. Thank you. And so again, the credit goes to the magic of the medium. You can play with it. Like I said, so long as you're willing to take a few risks here and there, it's worth it because it just gives you so many ideas and it defies logic. That's what I love.
True.
So that's what it is. And yeah, there was another thing that I wanted to show you. Thank you. Another thing that I wanted to show you, just to give you an idea of the potential of the material, is this is a bisque bead, as they call it, bisque. It's a ceramic bead which is completely raw. One would probably dip it in glaze ceramics and make a piece or whatever you want to do with it. What we have been doing as silver clay artists is this is the same bead. So this was coated with paste, a couple of layers of paste on this on all sides, left to dry, and then again I made scrolls or designs on this piece with a syringe, let it dry, put it in the kiln, and again left it there overnight, came back to it the next morning, and you have this. So again, this is also what you can do with this material, with silver clay. So you can make it chunky, but of course it has a sturdy base. So this one day will be a pendant or will be a part of a pendant or any other accessory. So as an example of the potential of the medium.
So ma'am, the consistency of the clay in the syringe form is such that it sets quite quickly.
Yes.
So it's comparatively, I'm asking if it sets faster than it as a slip or in any other form.
No, the slip will dry faster, The
Because
clay,
the details is almost as if it has a, I mean, like a GE wire, it's very thin, right? So it's very precisely detailed.
so it has enough time. It gives you enough time to work with it.
Okay.
And as you work with it, you use water here and there with it, you know.
Right.
So again, techniques to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has enough time. It doesn't dry instantly. It is not instant.
Okay.
So again, in Indian conditions, you don't work with it directly under the sun. You know, winters is ideal, no sun, no fan, no AC.
Yeah.
But in summers, you do not work with it directly under the fan because then it will dry. So then you will have to take extra precautions. Say you're working with clay, whatever you're not using, you cover it up with a plastic sheet, plastic wrap. And in winters, you can relatively leave it just like that. But again, that is the beauty of this medium. It makes you pay attention to detail. It makes you pay attention to being careful about it.
Yeah.
So the consistency is different. Say if you were to think of, say, putting the paste, for example, you've run out of a syringe and you say, okay, let me put the paste in the syringe and push it through. The paste is more gooey than the syringe.
That's what
So yeah, so people, you know, when we did our certification at one time, we were also made to push the clay out of the syringe as part of the process, but that's labor intensive. So now we don't do that. So, you know, that's why I love it in different forms. It's not, you may, but it doesn't make sense to do it, to change the medium and to use it for another purpose. Say,
Right.
if you used clay to make a little bit of slip, that's viable, you can do it. But if you know that you're using the paste with a certain intention, you might as well use the paste per se, because the paste is denser than the slip. It is more malleable, and at the same time, a paste will not do what the syringe can do. But there are times where they are interchangeable as well.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Please elaborate a little more on the enameling process. Hi. I asked if you could elaborate a little more on the enameling process, continuing with the question that she had first asked. So, so you fire. I assume that you fire it to get the clay piece first.
Yeah.
And then you enamel it. So,
Yes.
but when we enamel, we also do it in stages.
Yes.
To get the colors that we
Yes,
want in the right
yes,
order.
yes.
So, I'm curious to know how it works with PMC.
It works the same way, but the only thing is you wait for it to really cool down. And see, normally if you look at the Indian scenario where we enamel, it's done on a little flame. So it's open, it's in the open, so as the piece cools, it's okay. But when it's in the kiln, the moment you open the kiln, there's a gust of air that goes into it. That can be a little damaging. So you fire it, you wait it for it to cool down. The moment it comes to about 200 degrees, you know, as you get more confident, you take it out and then you do the next layer. It's the same process. You layer it gradually depending on what you want, the depth and the color. But that ultimately the process is the same. But like I said, silver clay brings out the colors like nothing else does, for sure. You wanted
My
to
daughter
ask
had a
something?
question, so
Sure.
she wanted to find out if you could coat anything with it, or like say, suppose could you coat another bead with silver clay, or does it only have to be a bisqued item? Because bisque would be something which you would have to be dependent on someone else to give that to her.
Okay, what beads are we talking about? You wouldn't do it on plastic beads for sure.
Glass beads or something like that.
Oh, you could do it on glass beads. You could do it on glass beads, but make sure that the quality of the glass is good. Because if the bead is scummy, which is how it is usually with wholesale stuff, then it becomes different. But otherwise, it's the same thing. You have a finished bead, do a bit of paste coating on it, let it dry, fire it, bring it out. Yes, with hit and trial you
You
can.
have to
Jewelry making, or have you made small sculptures?
You could do sculptures. I haven't. I've only used it for jewelry.
But there are people who have done sculptures. Or is it
Oh, it's not cost effective for sculptures. It's
not?
no, even tiny ones, yes, but I mean, no, not that I know of. But you could. I mean, if you took a big blob of clay, you let it dry, and then you carve into it, it'll respond beautifully. That I know for sure. Because it's very fine. It's like butter and cream, and you just fall in love with it. The more you do it, the more you fall in love with it. So you could, and it'll respond well. Really, no, not compatible per se. So unless you know the temperature, if you know the temperature of the crystals, but usually they melt. I don't think they can take that much of heat. So the crystal it'll start flowing. Yeah. So with crystal, what you could do is probably make separate components. Like let's go back to the bead. You can make bead caps. So then you could use those with crystals or with anything else at that matter. In fact, you could use silver clay to make your own findings. You know, when you make necklaces, when you do things where you don't find the right shape in the market, the right size and the fit, that's where silver clay comes handy. Just a smidge larger than the design that you're working on, and it shrinks just that much to give you a perfect fit to your pieces. So you can do accessories with it for sure. You know, you could do clasps of belts, clasps of pendants. Like this necklace again, if I were to walk through it, all of these are silver clay. This part of it is, you know, these little circles that you see here, these are also silver clay. These are, you could use your leftover clay to do these, you know. When you're making a piece, you have little things, you can roll them into little balls, smush the balls, make a little hole, so you could use them another time, you know. So it's like making an inventory for yourself. This is silver clay. This is the clay form, and this I made using the syringe, if you can look at this. So this goes into this. So again, the USP is, it's not, definitely not commercial. It's different. It's chunky, of course. It's bigger, but then it's handcrafted. So with whatever kind of jewelry you do, if you're looking for fine silver finish findings for it, then also you can use it. You know, that's how you can start. For some of you who might be a little petrified of using it for the jewelry, but again, when it comes to jewelry, the simplest thing that I did is what you all can also do is roll out a piece of clay, add a piece of lace to it, pull off the lace, let the piece dry, drill a little hole, fire it. You will be amazed at how the lace pattern pops out of it, and then put it with a boiled egg, and it gets oxidized, and it highlights the pattern even more, and then flaunt it, wear it and flaunt it, and you're ready to go. So that's also what happens at the beginners workshop. You know, we end up making with a pair of earrings, a pendant, and maybe two pendants or two pairs of earrings, whatever the call is, and then you wear your jewelry and you walk out of the session, and that's where the journey begins. So that's how it is. And if there are any it's egg has sulfur. The yolk has sulfur in it, and the egg white also has some component of sulfur. So the smell of the egg is actually because of the sulfur. So it has those fumes when it gives out. Not obviously not toxic, but you know, these are survival strategies that artists use here and there. When you don't get this, you use that. So I've been using it for a long time. Then I forgot about it till I had to do this piece that I was speaking about, and I thought I might as well literally just go the whole way on the handcrafted thing. And I was surprised. I mean, this is the first time I've seen so many pretty colors and oxidization, and it does have those pinks and blues and purples, and they stay. And if they don't, then you just do it again, because depending on the area that you are in, you know, I am in the NCR, so my pieces will not tarnish as quickly as pieces that will tarnish in Chennai or Mumbai because of the water content in the air. But it can be taken care of, and you also have these little ziplocks that you can put your piece in. And there are, in the US, they also have these airtight ziplocks, which are anti-tarnish, sorry, they call them anti-tarnish ziplocks, or anti-tarnish containers. So you put them in those. And but I think when they tarnish, they take on a life of their own. So every time you want to wear it, just polish it a little with a polishing cloth, and the piece looks different every time you wear it. So that is about it.
Can you make rings?
Of course, you can make rings with it. Can do. All kinds. You can do constructions, you know, you can make a one-piece unit, you can make a lot of pieces and then join them together using the syringe or the paste. You can do your own construction. The sky's the limit. So any other questions?
Ma'am, if you want to set stones on the piece, then how will you go with that?
One, you can't set all stones. I know that one can set garnets and peridors in it. Different ways of doing it. Garnets and peridors can be fired. If you're not firing it, if you set a bezel, if you preset a bezel and fire it, once it's out, then you can set any stone in it. But if you want to embed it in the piece and you fire it, it's usually cubic zirconia that works the best. Or you have garnets and peridors. And again, different ways of doing it depending on the context. You know, sometimes you want it in a bezel, sometimes you want it embedded, sometimes you want it in the claw. So if you're doing it in the claw, for example, the claw gets set before you fire the piece. Once it's out, then again you set the stone in the prongs.
Okay. Has it like ever happened that you've fired the piece and then while giving finishing or something, certain part has just broken out?
It happens initially sometimes, but no, if you really pay attention, it doesn't. But yes, sometimes if it happens, then you go all over it again. But that's not something that happens regularly. You know, it's usually when we have overlooked a step, or maybe you're doing it for the first time and you realize, okay, it could have been done differently. But no, it usually stays. It's a pretty sturdy thing to work with. So just for your information, you know, once we've talked about that first entry level of tool sets that we have, which is your firing on with a torch and you use these basic things. The next level would be when one is seriously into it, then you want to get a kiln. If you're working on pieces that are more than 10 grams, the advantages of working with a kiln are that it is more heat, it is consistent heat. It's predictable, it's handleable, it's manageable, and gives that piece enough time for technically something called sintering to happen, which is when the molecules come together, they rearrange themselves and you get more strength. So once that is done, unless you're obsessed with doing it with hands, which is the ideal way to work with silver clay, then you can also, one can polish the pieces in a tumbler. Now again, what a tumbler does is it's not just adding shine to the piece, it's also adding strength to the piece. So with a jewelry tumbler, you usually have oval pellets or circular pellets that you put in the piece, the tiny little things, and then you let it tumble for starting from half an hour to 24 hours, depending on what you're looking at. If the piece is delicate, you tumble it for a lot more. And basically, again, you're doing it more to add strength to the piece. The shine is the byproduct. You're doing it for strength. And if it's not that kind of a thing, then of course you tumble it for a little less and then it works. Just add a bit of soap to it, a dishwasher soap, a drop of it to lubricate the whole thing, and it's ready to wear.
What's your biggest challenge of doing this over here apart from material? Is there any other challenge you face here? As in India?
In India, yes, a lot of challenges. In terms of getting the tools eventually, because everything is okay, ye nahi hai, so let's try this. That kind of a thing, because I've also realized sometimes it is important to have the right tool for the right thing. So that's one. It's also about the community. Most of my art clay friends, almost all of them, are abroad. We do not have a community here, and I say this even though I am with Art Clay World India, because I've had students who are passionate, but then somehow eventually they drift into other things with due respect to whatever they do. And we don't have a market per se. As an artist, I am happy because I make pieces and I'm okay with it. But if somebody were to get into it with that mindset where you want to sell it in the market, there's a set of challenges by default. 92.5% pure silver is so easily available all over the country. Karigars are making if you were to make a simple piece for joy, it's a different ball game. If you were to make it to sell it, people would tell you, "Isse acha to karigar bana dega." So there's a challenge with the mindset. There's a challenge with the perception of saying it's handmade, because labor is so easily and so cheaply available here. And if your piece is exceptionally good, with due respect to everybody, a customer will want to haggle. Now, as an artist, it kills you. You don't want to haggle. It's not fair, because it's a journey. And also, as an artist, it's instant gratification, but in the market, if you were to go, I tell my students that very honestly, and I tell them upfront, if you were to sell it, please be strong about it. You will have a lot of resistance. There will be a lot of questions, and people don't trust it either. And also, we are essentially gold-centric. So that's another challenge. In a gold-centric country, it's not easy to, yeah. And also, we can't compromise. Like, if you look at a lot of good brands today, suddenly there's a whole spurt of jewelry online if you look at the jewelry. But there's also a lot of, it's not 99.9%, it's not 92.5 either. It's a blend. This medium you can't blend. So if a customer tells you that, okay, you are selling it for 10,000, make it for me for 5,000, you just can't do it by default. You are spending your time, energy, labor, and you can't mix it with something else. Then again, the other challenges, say for example, using art clay copper, art clay silver, any copper, precious metal clay, silver metal clay, because it takes a lot of carbon. So for me, sometimes it gets challenging to try and help people understand that, you're either burning dry coconut in the kiln, or you're burning a lot of newspaper for that piece to get that carbon content. And when you open the kiln, it's all black and dusty. So also you're spending the same amount of energy as you would on silver clay when you're working with copper. And copper is relatively, it takes more time in the kiln, it's more labor intensive. So that is also very interesting because people want to work with that, but they don't realize how much more energy consuming that entire process is.
So the kiln is not a gas operated or electric?
It's electric. It's electric.
So where does this burning of
Inside the kiln. You, especially when you're making bronze clay or silver, when you're working with bronze or copper clay, you put it in the kiln, you put it with coconut shells, and you put it, because it needs carbon. So that is a challenge in itself. Different for us, it's a very different sensibility. And in the NCR, with all the kind of pollution that's already happening, it's like, no, thank you. But yeah. Yeah.
Another said, our country is gold-centric. By any chance, is there any Art Clay gold also available in the market?
Yes, there is Art Clay gold in the West.
Why have we not considered that if, we are...
Because it is frightfully expensive to begin with, and it comes in tiny bottles or packaging, and you use it to accentuate a piece. So gold clay, I have not yet seen, and most people would not make an entire piece with gold clay because it's 22 karat gold, and also I'm sure there would be issues importing it. So I wouldn't dare. Silver clay is doable, silver clay is fair play, and most people then have also, you can also do kombu. Now there is this Korean art of infusing gold sheet on silver. So that's called kombu. So you make a piece, you finish it, it's high finish, silver, you put it on a gas stove kind of a thing, and you burnish a piece of silver gold foil on it. So you get, it's fused, so that takes care of the paste. But paste, again, people use it minimally to highlight a piece or accentuate it. So yes, there is gold.
But is the Art Clay silver and say an Art Clay copper, or I'm not too sure than an Art Clay gold, but would that be compatible as in a clay and not as a paste or a foil? Like with the clay?
Yes, they do, but not gold. Gold takes a higher, gold is much higher, it needs a much higher temperature to fire. With bronze, yes, people have done, there's a mixed thing called, I forget the name right now, but you blend silver and copper. But again, it's extremely labor intensive, and it has, you fire it different times at different temperatures. Once you do it to please the gold, copper, once you do it to please the silver, then you're blending copper and bronze because you want that wooden thing to it. It's a very Japanese thing that they do. So it takes, it is very, very labor intensive. Can be done, but you do it with precautions.
Something for probably a completely unique piece, which...
Yeah, but then you have to be willing to give it a lot of time as well. It's not, it'll take a lot of time. But with silver, again, once you're just working with silver, it makes life very easy. But yeah, we'll all keep our fingers crossed. I will too. So, okay, this is the piece. I will just tell you what I'm doing here. So, this is what you put on the gas stove, the mesh. This has asbestos. I am very convinced that it will not kind of burst into a flame. If it does, it is still safe. Do not panic, do not run. Stay where you are because I am the closest to it. And this is on a set of bricks. And this, I will try and prove my point here. If you were to hit it right now, I don't know, you can hear it, but basically you can't hear it. It doesn't have a sound to it right now. It could feel hard, but it's kind of mute because right now it is not in its metal avatar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire it, and then let's see what happens. So I'll tell you how I fire it so you have an idea, because I'm going to fire like this, but what you do is basically, if this is your piece and this is where you put the clay, you start from the outer circle so that you start warming it with the torch and you gradually come in. So if you catch it, the binder in it will just burn in split second. There's this orange little thing that happens, and then that's it. So you heat it only for a certain amount of time. I think this could take a little more with this kind of a thing, but with the kiln, say if you're supposed to fire at 800 and if you raise the temperature, then your piece will melt. but that doesn't usually happen.
How fast do you when you put it in, you ramp it up as against a quick 5 minute in and out? Apart from
Oh, it would make a difference if the piece is a really serious piece. In the sense, if it's instant gratification kind of a thing, a simple little pendant, it wouldn't make a difference. But if it's complex, you do want to take all the care. If it's a constructed piece, for example, then I wouldn't just put it in and pull it out. Yeah, then I would handle with care. But this I would. Like I said, anything below 10 grams. All of these rings, for example, all of this is you put it on. Say I have this also. This is called a fiber blanket. So this is a fiber blanket which goes in the kiln. So you put your piece on the kiln, on this piece, and you put it in. So if I were doing it regularly, I would put the piece here, open the kiln, put it in, and then take it out. But otherwise, I would just put it in, let it go slow also. I would raise the temperature slowly, and then let it stay there, and then bring it down, or just switch it off. Or maybe ramp it down again till it comes to 400, then switch it off, and then wait for it to come to 200. But that depends on how many connections you have in the piece and how delicate it is. Yeah. So shall I go ahead and fire it? See? So, must confess that this get a little overheated, but I think it's just made it prettier. So this is something that I could pass around for you to have a look at. And I think I'll pass the raw thing also on to you. Just do not hit too hard on it, but you want to hear the difference in the sound quality as well. You just know. It starts saying, leave me alone. Sure.
How easy or difficult has it been since the COVID to import materials? Because it's been very difficult.
I just, out of curiosity,
Absolutely.
what is the price of that small packet of clay?
10 grams of clay is...
I mean, approximate, and does the price move?
Yes, it does. It does. It does. It varies according to the prices. It would be anything between 700 and 2,100 at this point of time. That 10 grams of clay. It starts with 7 grams and 10 grams. 7 grams is usually what I use in the workshops with students. But when I do a basic beginners workshop, it includes a 10-gram packet of clay, a syringe, and a bottle of paste, everything included. But when it's online, then I would rather the students buy their tools from Amazon, because that's how it works.
Online,
I am, yes.
okay. And how long can you store the clay?
For a very long time.
Precautions, it doesn't harden or anything?
No. If you take care of it, because that's also something that I do regularly. It stays. You keep it in a dark, quiet place. If it's packed, then it stays for a very long time. If it's not packed, say if you, okay, let me tell you how you store clay that you've opened. You kind of wrap it in bubble wrap, not in bubble wrap, the cling film. Yeah, I wrap it in cling film. Take a moist tissue paper or a wet wipe.
Okay.
Put the piece in a wet wipe, and then put it in a bag with another wet wipe in it. Say preferably a Ziploc thing, because the clay comes in a certain packet which has a fabulous airtight packaging mechanism. So keep it in it, and every 2-3 months, if you're leaving it for more than 2-3 months, every 2-3 months check on it, and just substitute the dry wet wipe with another wet wipe, and it's good to go. And also, in case it molds, sometimes that might happen because of the Indian conditions. It's equally easy. Just dump the whole piece in a jar of water. The thing comes off, all of the thing that's grown on it, the mold comes off, and then you throw it all away, and then you reconstitute it as paste. And like I said, if you have broken pieces, then again you crush them to misery, and then you use them again.
And one more thing, you said the kiln is electric, but
Yes.
you guys get gas kilns also?
No. You get electric kilns. You get them custom made.
Down all the way from Delhi,
You're welcome,
Faridabad.
You're welcome, Naresh.
No, she has flown in exclusively for this, and of course, she being a fellow fiber artist, she took time off to spend some time with us in the studio, spinning and weaving,
Yes.
learning some new tricks
Learning
and
a lot of
teaching
new tricks and
teaching a
trades.
few things to us. Yeah. At the other side of actually, Shruti ji is, she's very multifaceted. What you have seen is just one part of her art journey. She dabbles with a lot of mediums. I think she's very good with watercolors,
Yes.
right? Watercolors, and
Getting at
I
it, yeah,
remember
getting better at it.
receiving New Year greetings every
Yes,
year
that's
without
another
fail
story.
from her, and she
Yes.
does it diligently, and she has a large group of friends, so she sends to everybody.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
You're
I'm
very
looking
welcome.
forward to receiving it this year also.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And of course, she dabbles in a lot of other mediums as well.
Yeah.
Glass beads and so many other things. And interestingly, she's also into hand spinning, dyeing, weaving, and weaving again different genres like digital weaving, sauri. So she does all. And last year, I think we wanted to take her opinion about what is spinning as a hobby. How do you find it as a hobby or something? I remember Aarti, I think she was interviewing.
Yes.
And I remember listening to the clip, the recording. She said, "What? Spinning is a hobby for you?"
Yes.
Hobby is a pastime. I don't do it for pastime, it's a passion.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So let me
Yeah.
be careful with this. So that's Shruti ji for you. So whatever she does, she totally gets involved, and you could see that today.
Yeah. I
Right?
hope
So she goes all the 9 yards, and
Yes.
yeah.
That's the only way to do things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So thanks a lot once again.
Thank
It has
you
been
very
a pleasure
much.
having
It's
you
been a pleasure
here.
having you here. Thank you so much.